Welcome to Sports Geek Q&A. Here's your host, Sean Callanan.
Yes, I'm Sean Callanan, and this is another edition of Sports Geek Q&A. Remember, you can send in your question these ways. Send me a tweet at Sean Callanan. You can submit them, sportsgeekhq.com/questions, or you can submit a question when you sign up for a Sports Biz Zoom call. I am actually stealing some of those questions and answering them on these Q&A episodes. As always, don't forget you can support our podcasting, newsletter, and now Zoom call efforts via Patreon by going to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon. Question 1 comes from Grace Vander Meer. Again, I hope I'm saying your name right, Grace. Grace has asked this on the Sports Biz Zoom call. If there are no spectators in stadiums, what ways do you think broadcasting could improve the viewing experience and atmosphere for TV? Knowing that it was strange atmosphere in the first round of the AFL season with no spectators in fans. So yes, in this part of the world, in Australia, we've had the AFL have a round of games without fans, and we've also had the NRL with a round of fans, round without fans, and most likely we're going to head to that in the very near future as we start seeing this return to sport. Some of the things that we did discuss and have discussed, and some of the things that I have seen, we have heard piping in of sound into stadiums, and as really as a way for almost to give a benefit for the players, but then also create a bit more atmosphere on the broadcast. There is talk of CGI, but knowing how much CGI costs and the way to implement it, it will be very, very difficult. I do love, I think it was out of Germany, the cardboard cutouts of fans. I know if I was allowed, I would be buying a cardboard cutout to put myself in my seat where I'm meant to be. So I think there's potential for that. We have seen robotic mannequins. I think it was in Japan. I think there will be some things done in the broadcast to improve the viewing experience. I think it's going to be tough. I think we'll see the broadcasters, producers tighten the shots to try to reduce the empty shots, but I do think the sound and the volume is something that they're going to work on. But like all of us, everyone is looking for, I guess, differences, and I think there will be some tech play in that space, whether it's us calling out, accessing it via our phones, yelling. Maybe there's some way to pipe in the content, or even something like, I think it was Manchester United that did back in the days of Google Plus, had fans engaging and jumping up and down through LED. And we saw something similar to that with the NFL draft, with the fans sort of cheering behind Roger Goodell every time he was making a pick. So maybe there are some things like that, but it's not going to be the same. But we're going to find out what sort of how we get through it. And the broadcasters will most likely do things to try to engage the lounge room more than trying to amping up the stadium ambience, I guess. I think after this break and not having sport, I think fans will be just happy to see the best players out there playing again, and we'll probably put to the side, I guess, the stadium piece. And the other thing, sort of to add, and it's more on the commentary of what's potentially happening in the NBA, they might not do it in the biggest of stadiums. There is talk that the NBA will be played in smaller stadiums, which will allow for a different type of crowd shot. But if everyone, and I think everyone who's listening to this is probably watching The Last Dance, we were all quite happy to be watching the Dream Team footage out of Monte Carlo, which is over 20 years old. Almost 30 years old now. I think just being able to watch sport will be enough. But I'm looking forward to seeing what the broadcasters do and how digital can sort of play a part. So thanks for the question, Grace, and thanks for coming along to the Sports Biz Zoom calls. This question came in from Mia via Twitter DM. What are the typical skills needed to work in sports digital? So the first answer to that is all of them. I think to work in sports digital, you've got to be multifaceted and have multiple skills. And so when I'm looking at the skills, ability to write, ability to write articles, but also craft copy and those kind of things. I think the ability to put some words together is good. If you can get in front of camera and talk to camera or do audio, that was also an advantage. And then also knowing the platforms. I'm a big believer in diving into the platforms, knowing them really well for yourself, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or TikTok. Learn the platforms on your accounts. And it'll also be a way that you actually get found. So know the platforms and then know the tools that will be at your disposal. Sometimes you will only have a camera. Sometimes you'll only have a phone. How can you maximize that phone? I'm not going to get into should it be an iPhone or should it be an Android. I can't do that in 10 minutes. I'm Team Android, just for the reference. But then also, what can you do with a camera? Can you shoot video and make it look good and fill the gap where needed? So again, I think it is ability to be pliable and that kind of stuff. And then I think it's a skill and something I've talked about a lot. To work in sports and to work in sports digital overall, you've got to put in the hard work and you've got to show a bit of grit because it's not going to be handed to you on a platter. You've got to be able to show that you can apply yourself and work an amazing amount of time and potentially be under rewarded. But it is quite rewarding to be part of a team in a team culture. So if you can show that spark and that grit to want the spot, then you will find a spot. But really polish your skills now on all the platforms. So when you do get the chance, when you get the keys to that big team account or that big league account, you can drive it. Question 3, and it's my Q&A segment, so I get to ask myself questions. It's a self question, but it's inspired by a friend of mine, JW Cannon, who's been on the podcast before. He started Cannon's Collectibles, and he's been sharing different pieces of memorabilia. And so I thought the question I would ask was around, I've got a bunch of sports memorabilia around here. I was going to talk about one of the favorite pieces, and I did share it on a Sports Biz Zoom call recently. We're obviously all watching the second mention of The Last Dance. We're all watching The Last Dance. That era of NBA basketball in the late 80s into the 90s was my era. That's the era I've used growing up. If you've heard me talk or speak and talk about the digital fans and how they change, I use myself as an example. When I was 16, I was a massive Detroit Pistons fan. I'm a big fan of Isaiah Thomas. And one of my favorite pieces of memorabilia is an authentic piece of floor from the back-to-back champion Pistons. So I believe it. I believe it's a piece of the Palace floor. I do know some of the things that happen behind the scenes and what is authentic and not authentic, but please don't steal my dreams. But that is one of my favorite pieces of sports memorabilia. I'd love to know yours. We're all in sport because we love the world of sport. Do you have a cherished memory or a piece of memorabilia? It would be a ticket stub, which unfortunately we don't get a lot of these days as we move to digital. That is a memory, whether it be as a fan or as working as part of the team. It might have been a really big win or a big playoff or final series. It might be a lanyard and the like. As always, thank you very much for the questions. Thank you very much for the questions when you are RSVPing for the Zoom calls. It does help me get those together and has the added benefit of giving me questions for this podcast. You can send me those anytime, either at sportsgeekhq.com/questions. You can send me an email, Sean at sportsgeekhq is how you can do it, or you can reach out to me on my socials. If these questions come from me from any different platform, there's every chance they could end up on this podcast. I really do hope you're enjoying this format. Like I said, it's something different, something short and sharp, and tries to get out in 10 minutes as I look at the timer as it ticks over 9 minutes. As always, appreciate your support from your listenership and appreciate all the reviews. If you like this content, if it is helping you in your job and you enjoy it, I'd really appreciate if you'd become a patron of Sports Geek. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com/Patreon and pledge your monthly support. Thank you for everyone who's done it so far. I really do appreciate it. Please support the businesses that are linked in this show notes. You can go to sportsgeekhq.com to find them every single time. Until next episode, my name is Sean Callanan, and you've been listening to Sports Geek.
You can reach Sean Callanan via email at sean@sportsgeekhq.com. Find out more about Sports Geek's Digital to Dollars process at digitaltodollars.com.
Go to sportsgeekhq.com for more sports digital marketing resources.